On a warm Saturday morning, sunlight came through the lace curtains of a quiet little cafe on Willow Street. The light made soft golden colors across the empty tables and the fresh flowers placed at every corner. It should have been a normal day, but for Rowan Mercer, a single dad still learning how to balance hope with being tired, it was the day he walked into a mean trick without knowing it. His so-called friends, who were bored and wanted entertainment, had set up a blind date for him. They didn't do it to be nice, but to make fun of him. They whispered jokes, poked each other, and waited to see how he would react when he found out that the woman they chose didn't match the perfect, shallow standards they lived by. They thought it would be funny. They thought he would walk out. They had no idea how wrong they were. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and treating people with respect, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps spread stories that matter. Rowan sat quietly at the sunny table, tapping his fingers lightly against a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. Life hadn't given him much time for dating after his wife died 2 years earlier. Between working 2 part-time jobs and raising his curious 8-year-old daughter, Marcy, every moment felt like he was trying to keep his balance. His friends told him he needed to get back out there and stop living in sadness. But Rowan never liked the idea of forced romance, especially blind dates. But after days of his friends pushing him, he finally agreed, not knowing their reasons were far from honest. The cafe was busy with lunchtime talking, clinking dishes, and the smell of warm bread. He tried to calm his nerves, practicing polite greetings in his head. He told himself this was just a simple lunch, an hour out of his busy life, nothing more. When the door chimed, Rowan looked up and his breath caught a little. Walking in was a woman named Karen Ashford, someone he had never met. But he immediately sensed she carried whole worlds inside her. She wore a pastel dress that brushed her knees, her soft body outlined gently beneath it. Her bright, nervous smile shook as though she had prepared herself for disappointment again. Karen was overweight, something society never failed to remind her of, and she carried it with a quiet hurt she tried her best to hide. She stopped at the entrance, looking around the room for a familiar face, until the hostess pointed her toward Rowan's table. The men at the back, Rowan's so-called friends, poked each other with quiet laughter, clearly waiting for the moment he would show the disgust they expected. But Rowan didn't move away. When Karen walked toward him, he stood, really stood without waiting, offering her the most honest smile he had worn in years. She blinked, unsure, surprised by his warmth. They sat across from each other, sunlight shining on the space between them. And Rowan noticed the way her hands shook slightly as she settled into her chair. He saw the way her eyes looked around nervously, expecting rejection. He knew that feeling because he had lived it too. The feeling of being judged without being known, the feeling of being dismissed without being understood. For the first few minutes, their conversation was gentle but careful. Karen spoke softly about her work at a local library, her love for fixing old books, and her love for painting landscapes during her afternoons off. Rowan listened carefully, truly interested by the gentle strength she carried. He told her about Marcy, about the struggles of raising a daughter alone, about how he missed adult conversations that weren't about homework, grocery lists, or unpaid bills. As they spoke, something changed. Two hurt hearts quietly recognizing each other's loneliness. Behind them, the men continued to watch, whispering cruel remarks, expecting Rowan to walk away at any moment. But instead, Rowan found himself wanting the conversation to continue. Karen slowly relaxed, her laughter coming out like sunlight breaking through clouds. She was smart, thoughtful, and surprisingly funny. And Rowan realized with every passing minute that the cruel joke wasn't on her. It was on him. His friends had underestimated him, and in doing so showed more about themselves than anyone else. Moments later, when Karen excused herself to the restroom, Rowan's friends came to his table wearing smirks wide enough to show their intentions. They teased him, poked him, asking if he was done with the comedy show. For the first time in a long time, Rowan felt anger rise, not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that comes from deep disappointment. When Karen returned, she sensed something was wrong. Her face fell, familiar pain showing in her eyes. "It's okay," she whispered before even sitting down. "You don't have to pretend. People usually don't." Her voice shook as she reached for her purse, but Rowan couldn't let her walk away like that. Not from him, and not because of them. In that moment, he stood again, turning toward his friends with a steady voice that made the cafe around them go quiet. He told them that Karen was the kindest, most real person he had spoken to in years. Someone who carried herself with more grace and respect than people who judged others based on shallow appearances ever would. He told them that being a single father had taught him to see hearts, not bodies. That Marcy would grow up learning that kindness mattered more than perfection. And then he turned to Karen and gently said that she deserved someone who appreciated her, not someone who treated her like part of a joke. Tears filled her eyes, not from hurt this time, but from the rare experience of being defended, being seen. A quiet fell over the cafe. Even strangers watched, touched by the honesty of his words. His friends, embarrassed and speechless, quietly slipped away. Rowan sat again, and Karen slowly took her seat too, still shaking, still overwhelmed, but no longer alone. For the rest of the afternoon they talked beneath the warm glow of lunchtime sunlight, and when they finally walked out together, Rowan felt lighter than he had in years. Not because he had found romance, but because he had found a connection based on honesty and shared feelings. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that inspire compassion. Before the ending, tell us in the comments what would you have done if you were in Rowan's place. As they walked into the bright afternoon, Karen wiping soft tears from her eyes, and Rowan smiling gently beside her, the world felt a little kinder than it had that morning. And sometimes that small change, one moment of courage, one moment of seeing another person fully, is enough to change more than just a day. It can change lives,